Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Callan Maria, working as an assistant professor in Loyola College of Education, Chennai. The title of the course is Childhood and Growing Up, which comes under Course 1. We are going to focus on Unit 3, Theories of Child Development. This video lecture is going to deal with Erikson's theory of psychosocial development, Kohlberg's theory of moral development. The learner will be able to explain Erikson's theory and Kohlberg's theory at the end of the video lecture. Let's learn about Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson was a German-American developmental psychologist and psychoanalyst. He was born in Germany as an illegitimate child of Danish parents. This fact bothered him a lot in his life. At his Jewish temple school, he was teased for being tall, blue-eyed, blonde, and Nordic look boy who looked very differently from the other students. So he stood out among the other rest of the kids. At grammar school also, he was rejected because of his Jewish background. Then he became dropped out of high school and he spent time in traveling in Europe and he was studying arts. His theories marked an important shift in thinking on personality. All his bitter early experiences helped him to fuel his interest in identity formation and continued to influence his work all throughout his life. He was most famous for coining the phrase identity crisis. Erikson has divided the entire human life into 8 stages, and that he called as stages of psychosocial development. In each stage, he says some fixation happens and that fixation is reflected on the later behavior of a person and by which the personality is identified in a person. That is what he has told. So in each stage, a person undergoes a fixation either positively as well as negatively. Positive fixation will enable the person to go and grow into a healthy, good personality. Negative fixation will damage or will cause some sort of influence in the behavior as well as personality in the further life of a person. Let's learn each stage now. Stage 1 is called trust versus mistrust, and this stage is around infancy from birth to 1.5 year to 2 year old child. When a child is of 1.5 year to 2 year old, the child will be completely depending upon the mother or the father for all his needs. So, when the child is given proper care by the mother, the child may successfully develop a sort of quality called as trust. Child will develop a sort of trust towards the other people. Whenever the child cries, immediately if the child is comforted by the mother, child will develop the trust and child will feel safe and secure in the world. In other words, if the child is not taken proper care by the mother or the caretaker, the child will always develop a sort of mistrust and it will result in the fear of the child. The second stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt, which comes under early childhood age and around 2 to 4 years. Children of 2 to 4 years will be very enthusiastic. They'll be bubbling with a lot of energy. They'll be moving around. They'll be asking hundreds of questions, even though the questions may be meaningless. For example, why crow is in black color, why parrot is in green color, why dog has 4 legs. So many questions they may ask. Unless or otherwise they are given convincing answer, they'll never stop asking questions. So, for an example, a child, very active child, jumps on the floor. You won't mind, you will be very happy for that. When a child jumps from a small stool, for that also you don't say anything. When a same child starts jumping from a table or a cot, a taller, higher objects, then we become angry. So at this particular stage, if the mother is giving proper encouragement to the child by helping the child to understand that if the child jumps from taller height objects, child may get hurt. Sometimes the leg also may be broken for the child. All these pros and cons, if you tell the child will feel secure and confident. Rather, if we shout at the child before even teaching them the proper consequences, before teaching them the consequences, if we are shouting at the children and if we are not encouraging the children, they are left with a sense of inadequacy and self-doubt. The third stage is initiative versus guilt. Here, the children will go to school, preschool children or 4 to 6 year old. Children will be very active at this age and they do have their own creativity. Creativity development also will be there in this age. For example, in this age, as a teacher, if you are drawing an apple on the blackboard and if you are asking all your children to copy that in their notebook, if a child is not interested to draw an apple, rather if a child is drawing a ship or an aeroplane if a child draws, at this stage, if a teacher comes to the child and encourage the child by telling, very good, your aeroplane or your ship is too good, now draw an apple, by which the child can become a successful person because the child is comforted by the teacher and encouraged by the teacher, and the child will feel capable as well as the child will lead others also. Rather, if the teacher is shouting at the child saying, I have drawn an apple, what have you drawn? So like this type of scoldings will make the child to fail to acquire skill, as well as they won't come forward to think even with regard to creativity, and they'll be having a sort of sense of guilt, self-doubt, and they will lack their initiative. Never again the child will come forward in your class to do any creative work. Next stage is stage 4, industry versus inferiority. The school age is between 6 to 11 years. 6 to 11-year children are there in schools at different classes. So at this particular stage, as a teacher, if you are teaching some mathematical concepts and if you are asking the child to do the homework, first 5 sums you do as a homework and come, if you tell your child, the child, because of over enthusiasm and law as well as lot of learning aptitude, if the child completes the entire exercise and comes to the class by the next day, if as a teacher, if you are encouraging the child, very good, you have done well, let me give you some other homework. So like that, if you are taking initiative and telling the child by encouraging the child will develop a feeling of competence and the child will believe in their skill. Rather, if you are scolding the child or criticizing the child or snubbing the child, saying that I have told you to write only 5 sums, why have you done the entire exercise? If you are scolding the child and if you are not encouraging the child will doubt its own ability to become a successful person. The next stage is identity versus role confusion, very important stage in adolescent period. So during adolescent period, the child's ultimate aim would be gaining proper recognition from their peer group as well as even from the elders. So if the child is given proper encouragement and reinforcement for whatever the child does or whatever the adolescent does, the adolescent will have a feeling of independence as well as they'll be able to control all their emotions at this age if proper encouragement. Rather, if the adolescent is not given any encouragement and no recognition, the adolescent may feel insecure and confused about themselves as well as their future. This is what he calls as role confusion. The next stage is stage 6, intimacy versus isolation. So at this age, they come under young adult 19 to 20. So this age, their focus would be selecting their life partner or choosing their own career. All these are at this particular age they may focus on. So successful relationship will have a sort of commitment in them and they feel very safe and secure with their relationship. by their bad luck, if they have a poor relationship or if they become isolate from their partner, they'll suffer from emotional isolation, loneliness, as well as even it may lead to depression. The next stage is stage 7, generativity versus stagnation, which comes in middle adulthood 40 to 65 years. So at this age, they'll be mostly concentrating on establishing their own family with regard to all their career promotion and buying wealth and advising their children, adult children, as well as even taking care of their old age parent. These are the responsibilities at this particular age. So, successful people may establish themselves by being active and accomplish their purpose of life, because they may feel that there is a family who are depending on this particular person. So, he has to take the responsibility of taking care of the entire family if he is having a successful family. Rather, if a person is not having a partner or a spouse, or if a person is having a very poor relationship, they may fail to attain the skill of taking the responsibility. Rather, they may feel unproductive and uninvolved in the world. They won't even aspire for promotion, or they won't even establish their life with regard to buying things, buying wealth and all that, because they may ask us very simple question: I am all alone, why should I earn? For whom should I do all this? So this sort of question would be there in their mind. The last stage is stage 8, integrity versus despair, old age, that is 65 plus till death. So when a person has undergone all the positive angle or positive side of his life experiences, he may feel proud of his accomplishment, and he may have a feeling of sense of integrity, satisfaction, and he may accept death with happiness because he has successfully completed all his tasks in his life at each age. Rather, if a person is unsuccessful with regard to life partner, career, everything, one after the other, all the negative side, if a person has undergone, he may end his life with disappointment, and he may lose his hope. Also, he'll have a fear for death. So, it is not mandatory that a person can have started his life with progressive, positive aspect. He can end his life with the same positive aspect. And same way, if a person starts his life with mistrust and all, he can end his life with despair. It is not at all mandatory. Rather, any time we may switch over from positive to negative and negative to positive, depends upon our life cycle and depends upon the fortunes as well as the relationships whatever we have in our life. Let me give you an example to understand this Erikson's theory stages in a 45 minutes classroom by a well-prepared teacher and an unprepared teacher. A well-prepared teacher enters the class with a confident smile. So that develops a sort of trust towards the children. Children will start trusting the teacher. But an unprepared teacher enters the class with an anxiety because of lack of preparation. So that will lead to mistrust. A well-prepared teacher recaps the previous session on her own. That shows her autonomy. Rather, an unprepared teacher will be unable to answer even the student's clarification because of her unpreparedness, and that would lead to shame. A well-prepared teacher will ask few questions to check the knowledge level of the students. That shows the initiative of the teacher, because even the students ask question also the teacher would be able to answer. However, if the teacher is asking the student also, that shows the initiative of the teacher. Rather, an unprepared teacher won't be able to unable to decide where to start, how to begin the class, what to teach, and all this will lead to a sort of guilty conscience in the teacher. A well-prepared teacher will help the students to find out the answer by catering the thinking. If the teacher is asking some difficult question, if the students are struggling, the teacher may give some clues. So that shows the industriousness of the teacher. Rather, An unprepared teacher will avoid further clarification because the teacher is already in an inferiority complex. Then the teacher starts the class. The teacher presents the topic. So the teacher proceeds the topic by which the teacher is able to establish his or her identity with regard to her knowledge level. But an unprepared teacher starts presenting the topic without even any clarity within herself or himself. That leaves a role confusion of the teacher among the students. The well-prepared teacher explained the new concept from simple to complex and with very easy language, with lively examples and all that, by which the teacher will develop a sort of rapport with the students, and that leads to the intimacy between the teacher and the student. Rather, an unprepared teacher either stuck to the blackboard writing something, or the unprepared teacher may go and sit in a corner and start correcting the notebooks. This will isolate the teacher from the student. Then, a well-prepared teacher can give a lot of homework with regard to reflective points. The teacher can ask the students to think and reflect on some new innovative ideas with related to whatever taught in the class. But an unprepared teacher will never give a homework or any takeaway messages. So the knowledge level of the students is stagnated here. No new learning happens that particular period. Rather, the previous level of knowledge is stagnated at this particular stage. At last, the well-prepared teacher can leave the class with complete job satisfaction since she has taught the students whatever she has planned. So that is called as an ego integrity. Rather, this unprepared teacher will be just waiting for the bell. So soon as the bell rings, the teacher just leaves the class with disappointment. That shows the despair of the teacher. So you have to think which teacher you want to follow. What are the educational implications of Erikson's theory? Teachers are expected to treat all the students with due respect because each student is unique, and each student should be engaged with more of activities. Teachers are expected to encourage, appreciate and motivate the students. According to the needs of the students, the teachers can modify the curriculum, modify the teaching learning process and evaluation. And teachers are expected to create a conducive learning environment for the students, as well as the teachers can make the learning as a pleasurable experience for the student, rather forcing them to learn to become memory machines. Let's learn the theory of moral development proposed by Lawrence Kohlberg. Lawrence Kohlberg was an American psychologist best known for his theory of stages of moral development. He said moral development starts at the age of 4. He was the youngest of 4 children of Alfred Kohlberg, a Jewish German entrepreneur, and his second wife. Because of his second wife, the step parent treatment and all, his parents separated when he was at the age of 4, and they got proper divorce when he was at the age of 14. So from 1933 to 1938, Lawrence as well as his 3 other siblings were rotated between the mother and father for 6 months every time. So this actually bothered him a lot with regard to the moral development. He served as a professor of psychology department at the University of Chicago, as well as at the Graduate School of Education at Harvard University. Kohlberg said there are 3 levels of moral development. Under each level, 2 stages, so altogether 6 stages of moral development are there in every human being. The first level is pre-conventional level, which has 2 stages as stage 1, punishment and obedience orientation. So here what happens, the physical consequences of action determines the goodness or the badness. The behavior is driven by the avoiding punishment. Let's take an example. For an example, a child of 4-year-old, you are telling the child not to go out and play after 6 o'clock because the child has to complete the homework. Okay, so when the child goes out and plays and the child returns home by 7 o'clock, we won't welcome the child. Rather, what do? We scold the child or we punish even the child. So, in order to avoid the punishment, the child would just obey. So, here the moral development is not because of the realization of doing the homework. Rather, the child wanted to just avoid the punishment. So, the behavior is driven by avoiding the punishment. Second stage is individualism and exchange orientation. So here the self-interest plays a major role. What is right and what satisfies your own needs and occasionally the needs of the others are very important at but this particular stage. So here the same example we take, if we say this child that the same thing like they should not go out and play after 6 o'clock since they have to finish their homework, the behavior is driven by self-interest and rewards. What the child would do, child would complete, scribble all the homework before 5:30 and the child would come and ask you permission to go out and play. So here what happens, the behavior is driven because of the self-interest. Self-interest is just to go out and play. So in order to play, the child will finish off all the homework and go out and play. So as a reward for finishing the homework, the child would ask for permission to go out and play. The next level is conventional level. Second level is conventional level between the age 10 to 13 years. So stage 3 is about good boy, good girl orientation. So here the good behavior is what pleases the other people and it has to be approved by others. So here the behavior is driven by the social approval. So at this stage, what happens? These children will just go finish all the homework as well as they'll come home by 6 o'clock and they'll be behaving very well and they would be asking the recognition from the parent telling, I have come home as you have told. Am I a good boy? Am I a good girl? Have I done this? So since I have done this, let me be given some chocolate or let me be permitted to watch TV. So all these sort of social approval they will be seeking from their parent. The next stage is social order orientation. Here, right is doing one duty and showing respect to the authority as well as maintaining the social order to avoid guilt. So here the behavior is driven by obeying the authority as well as confirming the social order. Here they'll be there in the school, they'll go to school, they'll have peer relationship, they'll be recognized by the society. So here whenever the children of this particular age, when you tell the same example, if you tell the child to come home by 6 o'clock in order to do all the homework, the child will behave very well. As well as whenever any relative come home, the child would behave very responsibly by respecting the elders and getting a very good name from the other people, other relatives. So here the behavior is driven by obeying the authority either in school or even at home to your parent or your grandparent, etc., in order to confirm the social order of getting good recognition from the society. The last stage is post-conventional level, 13 plus age. Stage 5 is about social contract individual rights orientation. Here, the behavior is driven by balance of social order and individual rights. Same thing if you tell to this particular age group of child that they have to come back home by 6 o'clock, they'll ask you hundreds of questions. Why? Why am I supposed to not to play after 6 o'clock? What is wrong if I go out after 6 o'clock? Because I have all the rights to go out and play. So that sort of attitude could be seen in this particular age. So the behavior is driven by balancing the social order and individual rights. The next stage is stage 6, which is about universal ethical principle orientation. What is wrong is determined as well as what is right is determined by the decision of conscience according to the self-chosen ethical principle. We know that going out and play after 6 o'clock will make you to not perform properly in your homework. So that particular consequence you may know. Even after knowing the proper consequences of right and wrong, if you have to go and satisfy your need of going out and play, next day you will be punished in school. So here the behavior is driven by internal moral principles. Even though they may stand for their rights, they may be very assertive, not even then, in order to gain the recognition for the entire universe, they may follow certain moral principles. At this particular age, even if you just tell the child, tell the adolescent to go out and play, also they would say, I have a lot of homework to complete. I need to complete this particular record, because they know what is right, what is wrong, and then they can have their own ethical principles. What are the educational implications of Kohlberg's theory? Understanding students at different ages of moral development should be there, and teachers are expected to help and guide the moral characteristics in each student, as well as they are supposed to help them to become the best as they can be. And there are some criticism with regard to this moral development stages of Kohlberg theory. They are, the moral reasoning does not directly translate into behavior. Behavior is different from the moral reasoning. Of course, whatever principles what we have, the characteristics what we imbibe, that is only exhibited in our behavior. But any time we can change or we can incorporate moral values in students as well as younger children. So the behavior may be affected by many other factors rather than only the reasoning. What are the key takeaways of this video lecture? The techniques of implementing Erikson's theory of psychosocial development in our day-to-day life, and how are we going to inculcate the moral values in children using Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Let me ask you two questions for you to reflect on. As a teacher or as a parent, how will you provide a conducive environment for your child's psychosocial development? As a teacher, how can you help a student to overcome an immoral behavior of a child? These are some of the books for your further reading. Thank you for listening, students. Wish you all good luck.